The Tigers really thought they were going to sweep the Mariners last night? Psh, Mitch, please.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, August 9th, 2024. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we're going to talk about last night's epic 4-3 walk-off win by the Mariners to avoid getting swept by the Tigers and hopefully kill the bad vibes that plagued them in the last three games. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the promo code LockedOnMLB. That's all lowercase for a first deposit match up to $100. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. So Colby, how did Ryan Vilade not catch that ball last night?
Well, as a outfield defense expert, he came at it with a backhand approach. He needed to just, come at it with a, just a regular forehand approach. And so I think he came up as an infielder, if I'm remembering him correctly. Yes. I remember he used to be a pretty, hyped up prospect relative, I believe was it the Colorado system? But yeah, so it looked like a guy who honestly hadn't played much outfield, and I don't know if he had or hadn't. I don't know if he's done that a lot recently, but he came at his angle was all wrong. He came at it trying to backhand it like this, and when you're off to the side, when you're diving the balls off to the side, this is really hard to catch. This is much easier. Yeah. And it feels like he didn't go with this because he was afraid he might get handcuffed and the ball might get by him, so he thought he could smother it if he went like this. So just kind of got caught in between. But you know what? After Parker Meadows made the catch he made the night before, I think the Mariners were due for some BABIP luck, and they got it in the ninth inning a couple times. And I'll take it. I'm not going to.
I was going to rage quit last night if he caught that ball.
Yeah, because just kind of fitting, right? Because what's interesting is in this series on Monday or Tuesday night, Castillo is actually really good. And Detroit just strung together a bunch of bloop singles and CNI singles. And
yeah, I think I saw some. I think it was Mike Lefko who posted this. I can't remember. He said though that 7 of the 8 Tigers hits that night, I think it was 8, at least started in the infield.
Yeah, they hit the dirt.
Yeah,
before they rolled. And then one of the hits that he gave up was a little blooper, a soft line drive that just went over Dylan Moore's glove. So. Detroit got all of those breaks, and then obviously, 2 nights ago they make the huge catch to save that game for him. And then last night Woo was really, really good, and outside of about a 5 or 6 hitter stretch, and there was some bad BABIP luck there for Woo as well. And so the Tigers kind of outside of the ninth inning, they really just put the ball in play a ton, and everything seemed to work out for them. Whereas the Mariners, when they put the ball in play, not so much, particularly, 2 nights ago with Cal Raleigh. And then obviously the way things were going yesterday, it was looking like it was just not going to fall for you. And then, Luke Raley gets things started with a swinging bunt that literally hits the bag. And then Haniger hits the ball hard. But it was a bit of a misplay out there in right field. And you take those, consider it, even on the karmic scales or whatever you want to call it. But
sure.
I'll take it. We take those and you're tied. It really is. I don't know if it's much of an understatement to say that ball not being caught might save the Mariners season, because if that ball's caught, we're talking about they're going into free fall and they've lost 4 in a row. They just got swept by an awful team. They're chasing Houston again and blah, blah, blah. And, basically the only saving grace at that point is that you're only 1 game back. But the ball falls and all of a sudden we're like, awesome. Yay. Mitch did it. And we're having fun talking about this, and we can focus a little bit on man, how good was Bryan Woo last night? Doesn't that give you hope? He almost went 7 innings in back-to-back starts. He looks like he's finally got the training wheels off and blah, 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 blah. And hey, Scott Service even used Jimmy Garcia down by 2.
There we go. Scott Service listens to Locked On Mariners confirmed. By the way, it wasn't Lefko that tweeted that. I don't know who tweeted that stat that I mentioned, but if you know, let me know in the comments below. So that was Mitch Haniger's 8th career walk-off as a Mariner, which is now the franchise record. It's his 3rd walk-off of the year in general, and his 2nd in the last, 4 games, whatever. But I want to talk about Bryan Woo because you mentioned him. What did you see out of him? Obviously, he was cruising for a while there, and then the Tigers were able to get to him, and he gave up the 4 straight hits that led to the 3 runs. But overall, how did you feel about his outing?
I thought he looked really good. Again, he just had the 1 inning where command and control kind of left him a little bit. He was a little more in the middle of the plate. But yeah, overall, it was pretty much exactly what you've come to expect from Bryan Woo. He threw a lot of fastballs, 88 pitches, 45 of them were 4-seam fastballs, 18 of them were 2-seam fastballs. So, 71% fastball last night. And it was a really good pitch, particularly the 4-seamer, 28% whiff rate on the 4-seamer. That's a good number, good solid number. Also had 6 called strikes on that pitch as well. So I think probably the most interesting thing, he threw 45 fastballs, 4-seamers, 25 swings, 7 balls put in play. None of them were hard hit. 0 hard hits on the 4-seamer. In fact, the maximum exit velo he allowed on the 4-seam fastball, 91.2 miles an hour. Fastballs typically get hit hard, right? Like that's, it's a risk reward. If you miss, fastball is probably the easiest pitch to hit in baseball right now. So if you miss your spot, typically that ball gets hit hard. So the fact that he was not only able to get a good amount of whiffs with the 4-seamer, but also nobody was able to square it up, really does speak to how good Bryan Woo's 4-seam fastball is.
It's such an anomaly, man. Like Bryan Woo in general is such an anomaly. Of all the starting pitchers in Major League Baseball this year with at least 60 innings under their belt, Bryan Woo has the 9th lowest hard hit rate against. And again, he's throwing exclusively fastballs. 2% barrel rate. That's first in the league, by the way. I just sorted it. Next is Nick Martinez, 3.8%. Again, Bryan Woo is pretty much more often than not throwing just fastballs. And no one is barreling it up. No one is hitting it hard.
Yep. And again, he's doing this.
It's mind-blowing. Right. 4 barrels in total over 67 and 3rd innings pitched.
And he's doing it without a breaking ball. Like, it's literally 4-seam, 2-seam, occasional slider, occasional changeup. It is, on the season, he's thrown his 4-seamer 51% of the time, his 2-seamer 25% of the time, and no other pitches has he used more than 10% of the time. So it is literally a 2-pitch attack. And if this guy can figure out a way to get a swing and miss pitch, a legitimate swing and miss off-speed pitch, we're talking Cy Young, because he throws a ton of strikes. He doesn't get barreled up, and he's a good athlete. It's a repeatable delivery. And again, he really hasn't pitched that much, all things considered. So this is a guy, we know that the Mariners got asked about him. We know that the Mariners really didn't shop him all that hard this last winter. And I don't anticipate them doing that again this winter, because this guy might be something special. There's still questions, sure, but you might be selling low on Bryan Woo if you were to trade him this winter. So I think the Mariners see Woo as a building block, as a part of their core, not as a, awesome little addition to the core. I think they legitimately see Bryan Woo as part of their core going forward.
And then you look at the walks per 9 leaders in Major League Baseball this year, amongst all starters with, again, 60 innings under their belt at least. Bryan Woo, number 1, George Kirby, number 2. 0.94 walks per 9 for Woo, 102 walks per 9 for Kirby. Elite strike throwing, right? You have the 2 most elite strike throwers in baseball in the same rotation.
Yep.
And again, Woo, I feel like we're only scratching the surface here. Because again, he's just throwing a fastball.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's not like Logan Gilbert and Bryce Miller are struggling to throw strikes most nights either.
Nope.
Like Castillo's the wild stallion of your rotation. He's averaging
running
just over 3 walks per 9 or whatever. Like,
is it even that? I feel like last
know.
time I checked,
I don't think he walked anybody. I think he only walked one guy in 6 innings against Detroit. So, like,
last time 2-4 walks per 9.
So yeah, like that's the guy who struggles to throw strikes in your rotation. And so, the Mariners rotation again, and this is what I keep on saying, and it's what we'll keep on saying. Like, do you even want the Mariners to make the playoffs? Do they even deserve to? Yeah. Because you
get in with this rotation and just see what happens.
Yeah, you got a shot. Yeah. You only have to win 11 games in October to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're telling me this rotation can't carry me for 2 weeks? We've literally seen them do it. Literally. A couple times this year for more than 2 weeks at a time. So, of course you want to get in because this rotation can do damage.
So let's talk about how they could get in. We are 46 games out. The Mariners and the Astros are tied for first place in the American League West. How many wins is it actually going to take for the Mariners to win the division? Let's talk about that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by both Liquid IV and eBay Motors. I think most of us can agree that there is nothing better than enjoying an ice cold beverage on a hot summer day at the ballpark. So when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Tonight, you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Mets on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So, again, the Mariners and the Astros are tied for first place in the American League West. The Mariners have 46 games to go. Colby, how many of those games do they need to win in order for them to win the division? What is the minimum, I guess? That's how I should frame it here. What is the minimum amount of wins that they can get here that you think will win the division?
I don't know. The way that Houston's played recently, the way Seattle's played recently, it feels like it might only take 84, 85. It really does. So, I think a good safe number would be 88.
Yeah.
88 to 90, somewhere in that range. And so in that case, Seattle would have to go 28 and 18 down the stretch here to get to 88 wins. So, I think that's possible. I also don't know if it's going to take that many. And, I guess we should mention still technically Texas is kind of hanging out in the back. They're only 5.5 back. And if, Houston and Seattle are going to be mid for the rest of the year, it still might happen. So, throw Texas out there too. But yeah, this is a team that, or this is a division that very clearly is going to be won by whoever gets hot the last couple of weeks, and probably gets won by whoever wins that series down in Houston, second to last series of the year. So I look at this and I go, you know, if they get to this number, I feel really confident they're in. I think that number is 90. Can they go 30-16? Sure, they could. It's within the realm of possibility. Are they going to, based on how they played the last 6 weeks? No. So I honestly do think that it's going to be about.
Someone clip this though, in case they do.
I mean, hey, there's always the possibility they go on the major league, style winning streak, and they, rip off the article of clothing from their owners. You guys.
They should do that. They should do that with you though. Should have a giant cutout of you, and then
one of their staunchest supporters.
Yeah.
Typically don't do that with a bootlicker, but whatever.
Right.
But it does feel like, honestly, 85 might be enough. But I think if you get to 90, I feel really good that they're going to win this division, just because, again, both of these teams, outside of each of them having about a 6-week stretch where they were playing great baseball, have been, frankly, bad for the other, 10 to 12 weeks. So, Texas has been wildly inconsistent as well all season. Like, Texas hasn't even really had that good of a stretch yet.
No.
So maybe they have one in them, but like, to me, Seattle, this doesn't feel like one of these teams is going to fade. It feels like they're both kind of fading together, and they'll hand off the lead a couple times here, and then we'll get to late September or middle of September, and then it'll be like, all right, one of these teams is a game up, or one of these or they're tied or whatever. Each team has 14 to go. Like, it's just comes down to who wins the most of these 14 games. So yeah, I don't have a good feel for it. I think, like, I would not be shocked at all if the winner of the American League West had 85 wins. I think more than likely it's going to be somewhere between 88 and 90. So, it's a bummer. The difference in, like, coasting to the series, if you had won, like, I don't know, if you had won 5 more games than you have over the last just, 6-7 weeks, just one extra game a week, right now, we'd probably be like, oh yeah, I mean, like, we're 4 or 5 games up. Like, we're still, I mean, can't quite say we're coasting yet, but it's, we're feeling really good about ourselves. And, the games that you could have won, those 4 or 5 extra wins that you could have had, you're probably thinking of a few of them right off the top of your head right now.
Yep.
And that's the margin, right? And it sucks that you put yourself in this situation, and it sucks that you're going to be without Julio for at least another week. It sucks that you're going to be without JP for at least, another 2 or 3 weeks. But that's the hand you were dealt, and, Houston's playing shorthanded right now too. And, it's going to come down to the last couple of weeks of the season. So 85 at the minimum. I think you probably get to 90, and I feel really good that they're going to win this division. So, I think 28 wins, give or take, gives you a pretty good shot to win this division. I think 30 plus wins over the last 46 games or whatever, I think that probably locks it down for you.
And like you mentioned, that series, the second to last series of the year for the Mariners and the Astros down in Houston, it's going to be massive, because if the Mariners just win one of those games, it's essentially like 2 wins because of the tiebreaker.
I mean, yeah, Seattle's up right now 6-4 in the season series. So keep in mind, guys, and we talked about this last year, we'll talk about it again this year, because apparently it's going to matter, unfortunately. There is no game 163 anymore.
Yeah.
The ties in the division are broken by head-to-head record. Two-way ties are broken by head-to-head record. So if Houston and Seattle tie at the end of the year, let's say they both win 90 games, the team who has the edge in the head-to-head matchups wins the division. The other guy goes home. Like, it really is. There is no playing game or anything like that.
As it should be.
Right. And Seattle has won 6 of the 10 games they've played so far. So if they win 1 in Houston, they will have 7 wins against the Astros. The most Houston could then have at that point against Seattle is 6. So you'll have clinched the season series, which means, again, Houston can't just tie you. So, like, if you're tied on the last day, Houston has to win, you have to lose. Like, it's like having another game advantage over them, and that could be all the difference. Because again, like I said, these two teams just seem destined to be stuck in a mid-off for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it almost feels like everything that happens between now and then is just filler.
Sure, I mean, like, look, obviously it'd be great.
The teams can't look at it like that, but
no. But like, it'd be great if Seattle could go down to Houston, and by the time that series starts, they have like a 1 or 2 game lead. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But more than likely, if they're down by 1, that's still okay. So like, it just, that series, it's down in Houston. It's going to be hard fought. We know that. It's probably going to be looked at by both teams as, our season. And the winner of that series just has such a huge leg up. Possibly, because Houston could win that series, and you could still leave Houston with a huge leg up because you won 1 and now you're tied or whatever, but you have this. So like, if you go into Houston and you're up a game and you leave Houston and you're tied after that series, you still have the same lead you did when you went in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, winning 1 of those games is huge. I think if you win 2 of those games, I feel really good about it. You do finish up with Oakland. But Oakland can hit a little bit. So hopefully, this is a situation where Seattle either clinches in Houston or they get to clinch at home. They got to play well. I mean, there's no, you can't just sit here and be like, well, hopefully Houston sucks too for a little while. Like, no, start playing better. This really isn't that hard of a concept. Play good ball, play clean baseball. And if Houston happens to play good baseball too, fine, whatever. But if they start to struggle, or they continue to struggle, and you start to play good baseball, and you get into those last couple weeks, and you have a couple game lead on Houston, heading into the last 10 or so, you're looking at a situation where Houston probably has to sweep you to have any shot to win that division.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see. The Mariners, we are unfortunately quite familiar with what a collapse looks like, having witnessed it last September. Hopefully this time around, we don't have to.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. Well, I figured you'd been reminded having watched this team in June and July.
Yeah.
So, it really is crazy that the American League West is basically going to come down to like, hey, which team is going to have the best 3-week stretch in the last, 6 weeks? Oh. That really is what it comes down to. It sucks that you put yourself in that situation, but you did. So deal with it.
Yeah. All right. So, the stretch of 46 games starts tonight with the New York Mets coming to town. Of course, Sunday Night Baseball this weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a pretty interesting matchup between two teams that are trying to make the playoffs. Go over that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And a general rule of thumb here, if they breathe air and they're scheduled to pitch against the Mariners, it's probably a good idea to pick more on their strikeouts. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, tonight you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Mets on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. All right, so the Mets are in town, folks. Going to be an interesting series between these two ball clubs. The Mets come in at 61-54. The Mariners, of course, 60-56. Jose Quintana takes the bump tonight for the Mets against Bryce Miller. Tomorrow it'll be Sean Manaea, who I think we're all pretty familiar with from his days with the Oakland A's. He'll be going up against Logan Gilbert. And then on Sunday Night Baseball, it'll be Luis Castillo against Luis Severino, the former Yankee. So, Colby, what are your impressions of the Mets and what are your thoughts heading into the series?
Yeah, the Mets have been playing the Mets, frankly, have kind of been the anti-Mariners. They got off to a terrible start, and they've been playing out of their mind for 2 months, and the Mariners kind of did the opposite. So you have two teams like nearly identical records. Both teams trying to hunt down a playoff spot. Really, only one playoff spot open to. Well, the Mets technically have three because they're chasing wild card spots, but there's one path to the playoffs for both of these teams, and I think they're both have good pitching. Now, Seattle's pitching on paper is better than the Mets. Mets lineup on paper is going to be better than the Mariners, but they both have big stud at the back end of their bullpen. So yeah, I do think that these are two, fairly similar teams the way they're built right now. If both teams are fully healthy, I would take the Mariners roster. I would take the Mariners pitching. I might even take the Mariners lineup if both teams were healthy. But the Mariners aren't that healthy right now, and so it's not exactly an easy role for them. Manaya's been very good this year. Quintana's really solid. Even Severino's had a nice, solid bounce back year, although he is a little susceptible to blow up starts. But overall, this is two pretty good rosters, two teams that I could definitely see, making some waves in October. And it's just going to come down to who plays better. So I think, as we usually say, Seattle on paper has the advantage in the rotation, but they just did this last series and they lost 2 of 3. So, it's one of those things where you kind of doesn't matter anymore, right? It's barely worth mentioning, but it should be a fun matchup. Obviously Pete Alonso coming to T-Mobile Park is a big draw, and you want to be up, right? You don't want to face Edwin Diaz down in this series if you can help it. But Seattle's bullpen should be in pretty decent shape. I don't know if Jimmy Garcia is going to be available today, but I know Andres Munoz is, because guess what? He didn't pitch that entire series in Detroit. What? Good thing they saved him, though, just in case. They needed him. But so bullpen again yesterday. Woo able to go 6 2/3 really helped. They've used JT Chargois a lot, and he was really good yesterday too. He's been really solid since he's come back. So they might be down a couple arms tonight, so hopefully Miller can go pretty deep. But they should have Munoz, they should have Snyder, they should have both, so they should be able to handle high leverage spots in tonight's game if they come up. So Brandon Nimmo, underrated player. Obviously Francisco Lindor is a great player. Pete Alonso, really solid bat. So there are some guys in the middle of this lineup that you do have to worry about.
Dude, Mark Vientos is having a great year. JD Martinez always seems to do something when he's in Seattle. Jose Iglesias is having a really good year.
Yeah. And you're basically the Mets right now for the last 2 months have had, 4 or 5 guys just be on Linsanity runs. Vientos is having his Dylan Moore May, and Iglesias is having his, Sam Haggerty August, and it's all happening for them, and that's why they're playing really good ball right now, is because they have a bunch of hot hitters and they're getting enough from their pitching. So.
And Colby, guess who's slashing 278, 333, 468 with 127 WRC plus for them?
Well, I know Jesse Winker is having a good season, but he didn't do that for them.
You have a ball that was hit off of his bat.
Luis Torrens.
Yep.
Right back there.
29 games. Luis Torrens has been pretty darn good for the Mets, and of course, Jesse Winker now on this team.
People need to keep listening to me.
Let's see, what has Winker done since he came over in that trade? He is slashing 300, 333, 300. It's an 86 WRC plus in 7 games with the Mets. So not much of a sample size.
It's a good lineup. It certainly is a good lineup. And obviously, again, you're facing them kind of, at least one man down in Julio. 2, JP. Not that JP's been great this year, but it'd be great to face him at full strength. But it's the way the cookie crumbles, and so you're catching a hot team right in the middle of a pretty good run that they're on, and you're catching them when your guys aren't exactly swinging the bat all that well. So it's going to be a tough series for them. Hopefully they can find a way to grind out a couple wins. But, when you have pitching, when you have starting pitching, you're going to have a shot most nights. And so you just need the offense to contribute a little bit here. The Mariners can find a way to put up 4 or 5. Quintana and Minaya and Severino, then I feel like they have a great shot to win this series. If they, struggle and it's a grind to get one or two, they're probably getting swept. And then all eyes go to Boston to see what happens with the Red Sox and the Astros. So just handle your business, and then you can scoreboard watch. But I guess the good news is you'll go into each night knowing what the Astros have done. They'll be done for the day, so you kind of can watch the game knowing if you have an opportunity to pick up a game or if you're just trying to hold serve. So we'll see how it goes, but it should be a fun matchup. These are two pretty fun teams with lots of fun players on them. It would be great if Julio was available for this series. It could be a difference maker, but he's just not there.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty fun series, and it feels like both of these teams' strengths kind of balance one another out, and they kind of find one another on an equal playing field. So it'll be fun to see, kind of what gives here between these two clubs. All right, that is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Tiding Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tiding Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Now head on over to Locked On Seahawks to get all the latest out of training camp from Corbin Smith and the gang, and tell them Ty and Colby sent you. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.